About a year and a half ago, I had started writing a script all about how the Whoniverse rebrand for Doctor Who with the new Disney deal was a huge mistake and that it was going to backfire. That video kind of fizzled into my review of season 1. So now we're here on the other end after Nshuti's short-lived run in the TARDIS was far from perfect, despite some real highlights with episodes and his performance especially. I think it's pretty safe to say now that the attempted MCU-ification of Doctor Who with this big rebrand was a failure. The idea gave an illusion of connectivity, of world building when there really wasn't any actually going on. First of all, when we're being promised this new and exciting era, and the logo used is a slightly revamped version of one from Classic Who, is not your best. You're not putting your best foot forward there. And the ident that shows up before the episodes, this big celebration of past Who, classic and modern, and all the spin-offs, presumably to celebrate that rich and powerful past, was pushing off that as the foundation into this new era. And we were told it was going to be fresh, it was going to be consistent, no retreads, and no tremendous baggage that had built up not only over Classic Who, but of now New Who. That was just a fucking lie. We now know that whenever the show returns, it's not going to be in the same form that it has been. Whether that be the BBC work with a different partner like HBO or Netflix, or it's just the BBC with a whole new production team. Either way, it's going to be different. We know that for certain. And the whole title of the Whoniverse and the whole branding put onto that was used to head into this Disney era. And we were told all of this was going to happen, and it just hasn't. It's so painfully clear that nothing has gone to plan, and that has even affected what happens within the show.
It was always the plan to do this amount of seasons.
And so what was supposed to be this big new expansion of Doctor Who going crazy again, it was going to be consistent, it was going to be good, it was going to be loved, it was going to be everywhere. It's just not happened. And it's not fair! The Whoniverse era went from Comic-Con hype to leaving the show in a comatose limbo state. The big thing about retitling it to Season 1 instead of Series 14 was so that new fans can jump in and understand without baggage and get hooked on these new characters and new stories. And that is what the show needed now more than ever, because the last era with Whittaker and Chibnall, especially with the Timeless Children stuff, the show had become obsessed with its lore and canon, and that only added to the baggage that it was building. So an injection of fresh and new ideas and new talent and new approaches and new branding, it was needed. But calling Series 14 Season 1 was a big red flag, and for me, hurt my OCD, because now my series count that I have is totally fucked. But not even just from a numbering perspective, but the show picks up directly after the last era and keeps things that were established there and actually incorporates them to the point where even in the reality war, Jodie Whittaker shows up. Great scene and cameo, but unfortunately, the subject of the scene never felt totally earned because it's supposed to be the Doctor looking back with his now newly more positive and understanding outlook in comparison to the self-hating past, but Ncuti never really had time to show a Doctor that had gone through that and gone through that therapy that was spoken about in the giggle.
Oh, do you see? This is why nobody likes you.
Now in hindsight makes that episode kind of void and the impact of that much lesser. The 60th was supposed to set up a Doctor with no more baggage and to be able to go full steam ahead without the self-hatred and all of that. And so nearly immediately to be kind of proven inconsequential.
You weren't gonna leave without saying goodbye.
As if I would ever do that.
Everything we're being told around the show is not being complemented in the show. Another thing is the Doctor we're now following is a symptom of bi-generation, a new thing that you had to see the 60th anniversary to understand. And I think an anniversary special is rarely a great place for new audiences to jump on. Case in point being that it was led by David Tennant, an actor who has previously played an incarnation of the Doctor, the 10th Doctor. But this isn't him, this is the 14th Doctor. He looks the same and mostly acts the same, but he's not the same. So you see, from a foundational point, this era is doomed. Despite the claims of being new and going full steam ahead, Nshuti's era started and ended with nostalgia bait key jangling bullshit. One with David Tennant and one with Billy Piper. He has been overshadowed massively and I feel bad for him. One of the saddest things is that season 2 had a very strong start as well, and the reality war wouldn't have been loved either way because it was a bad episode. If we didn't have the Billy Piper moment, it wouldn't have left nearly as bad of a taste in fans' mouths. Because now, the show's perfect setup for a brilliant actor's new take on the character in a new fresh light has single-handedly been lessened, with the concept of regeneration also being torn down in the process. What was once the gateway to the show finding new territory and exploring new things has been turned into a frustrating element used for the sake of content above all else.
Internet age storytelling where...
And was that deliberate?
Yes, you just hope it'll generate content.
And I think the whole bi-generation thing, now that like the dust has settled from it, it was just change for the sake of change. I think it seemed that, yeah, RTD wanted to maybe make that a permanent thing, based on the fact it's never really effectively explained. When I look at individual stories in this era, I tend to quite enjoy the episodes, but despite this I find myself more interested to go back to the Chibnall era, due to the overall structure. And this is a shame for some of the new creatives that got involved in the latest era, which I think is another huge issue that the Whoniverse has faced. Despite, as I've said, claiming and seeming perfectly set up for new faces and new talents and new approaches, Russell T Davies wrote 15 out of the 21 episodes in this new era. And I can't really call it that, because it's not. So even though the episodes that came from him are probably my favourite, it's more about what the show as a show needed. Unfortunately, I think the failure really boils down to bad planning from a showrunning perspective as well as a production point from the BBC. To say all these things about a wider plan that would come beyond what they've got greenlit, whilst knowing that Disney could drag their heels with the contract, forcing changes to episodes mere months before airing, leading to them losing the lead actor because of the poor management and poor foresight, where plot lines and characters are also removed because of this. I mean, it was only a matter of time if your plans were so poorly thought out around the show and for the future of the show that they were going to affect the actual content of the show. You only have to look at deleted scenes to kind of see this. The scenes that are cut leave huge plot holes to how something was resolved or why a character did a certain thing. So only looking at that, you can see that this era has just been poorly made, poorly ran, poorly conceived, to the point that the entire setup for a new era and new production and to catapult itself into the right direction has proved to be exactly the opposite, ending after only 2 seasons and a singular spin-off to come, which, as much as I want to be excited for because I think it looks pretty good, I have no hopes for after the main show kind of sucked ass. Every creative decision made that they claimed was to benefit the show only destroyed it to a point where we now have an unknown wait for the show to actually come back. And I hate to say it, but everyone involved behind the scenes with this new era did a bad job. I'm sorry. And as we all knew, the series counter reset also came back to bite them in the way that this era was even more lore heavy than the last one. For the first time since her departure, Susan was returning. There was a lack of real world building. The big bads of both seasons were villains from classic Who. We get a sequel to an episode from 2008, and so much of it connects back to the 60th anniversary. There's so much more baggage here. Series 11, as much as I don't like it as much as either of these seasons, is a considerably better jumping off point. The world building that they seem to want to focus on to make this universe truly connected and to give it the feel that the MCU has, this universe where things and characters can cross over from different shows, see the real scale of the universe, but we don't even have any world building within the show. So I'm left not really caring about anything else they produce. You know, with Sarah Jane and Torchwood, they were established in the show as a little link that they could connect to and build from, but there's none of that here. Like, yes, the war between the land and the sea focuses on UNIT, which were a prevalent presence in this era, but I think, unfortunately, a negative one. Rather than actually using UNIT as an organization and characters within that, it's just a stationary location that they could use repeatedly. Now, for sure, when the show does come back with its 3rd season, they could keep the Whoniverse name and that logo, and I'd be fine with that, but we know for a fact that however the show comes back, it's going to be different, and I would be willing to bet that it won't have that Whoniverse tagline with it. It's a real shame and disappointment overall. I think people saw the deal with Disney as a deal with the devil, a mistake from day one, and it's just been proven that the fan base was right. Even if they didn't have a hand in the actual creative process, they have completely destroyed the production process, leaving the show in limbo that for all the times BBC can reassure us that it's coming back, it's just a matter of when. And as great as that is, it just means there's going to be a huge wait and that this is the end of this era, because all signs point to Disney not wanting to renew the contract. I don't want them to renew the contract. I don't think any of the fanbase wants them to renew the contract. If I was the BBC, I would not agree to an extension. This Whoniverse big era that we were supposed to be keeping our eyes on and enjoying and being invested in for years to come has ended after 2 years. This is the first time an era has ended prematurely as well, at least in New Who. Obviously Eccleston left, but Davis was still on board and that whole production team carried it over to kind of make the change work. We don't get that this time. We just get them throwing Billy Piper at the screen and leaving it there. And it reeks of desperation, of hitting the panic button because it wasn't planned.
Content.
I have despised almost every RTD interview I've seen throughout this era, which is a shame. And I think maybe it's more of a case of he was just allowed to use his fan brain more. Maybe he's just too much of a fan, and this era, to me at least, felt so much more like style over substance. When Davis left the first time, it was his choice, and likewise with Moffat and Chibnall. And we may well have Davis when the show comes back, but I don't want it. To be perfectly honest, I don't want him to, and I doubt that he would. I know a lot of people have said the best route maybe do a special or two, give Piper her time, because it's also unfair on her really to put her in this position and then just ignore it. She is a great actor, and I think she'd be great in the role of the Doctor or what other character she might be playing, because they've not even said that she's the Doctor. It's dumb, it's shit. Obviously I don't think RTD was malicious with how he approached this era, but I do think it was kind of stupid. For me, as a fan, the trust is now broken, and I'm now craving newer stuff even more than I was before. So hopefully whenever we do get season 3, it will be new and it will be fresh and it'll be what the show needs. But unfortunately the big Disney plan of MCU-ifying or Star Wars-ifying this show, having lots of spin-offs and interconnectivity and long-running consistent seasons, none of that has panned out. RIP to the Whoniverse. I actually can't believe that the show has ended the way it has. Like, Doctor Who's over as we know it for right now. As much as I'm sure it will come back. Fuck, the show's over. It's actually ended for right now. Fuck me.